First off, remember it's a conversation. We have topics. The topic is supposed to drive a conversation, so make sure to say something if you have an opinion. Uh, we'll try to stay to 1 hour because there is a race later. If we skip anything, it'll be hardware. All right, here we go. Are you ready, Will?
User in your channel started recording.
Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I'm your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Gregory Hectus.
User entered your channel.
Hey.
Michael Morley.
Hello.
William Gibson.
How's it going, guys?
Tony Groves. And special guest, Spencer Tart.
Hello, thank you.
Hey, guys. All right, welcome. We got a big group tonight. Lots of going on in iRacing. Let's start with Spencer Tart. Thanks for joining us, Spencer. Let's learn a little bit about you today. So we'll go through our normal Q&A. And so let's start with what brought you to iRacing and how did you hear about it?
What brought me to iRacing mainly is I'd been doing a little bit of sim racing on other stuff, like Project Cars and stuff like that, but always coming from a NASCAR background, there was no real simulator out there that kind of offered what iRacing has. There's nothing like iRacing in the terms of oval racing, and it was a no-brainer.
All right, very good. So 2017 and 2018 looks like you've been here. And so how often are you racing this? Are you daily, weekly?
I would just pretty much just go ahead and say daily, racing something or practicing for something, with a lot of league racing coming up right now, and not running as much official stuff, but it's still been quite a bit of racing over the last at least 6 months.
Right. Now, we ran across you because you're involved in a new series that we've been talking about on the podcast, and you're a listener. We knew that as well. And so this new series that you're involved in is the NASCAR Ignite series, and it's for, 14 to 16-year-old? How old are you, Spencer?
Yeah, it's for 13 through 16-year-old drivers. I'm personally 16, so I kind of have to get as most of it as this year as I can because it'll be my only shot at it.
All right, so let's briefly go over your results. So you've had one start so far, and you finished P2, right?
Correct.
Nice run. And so tell us a little bit about that run. Where did you start, and what kind of challenges did you have in that event to get a P2?
Okay, yeah, so, we started second. I knew it was a little bit faster. I knew I probably had a shot at the leader. Not too far in, but I was working with the guy in third just because I do run with him on the regular. And it was just insane. There was people out there that, either just didn't have business being out there, and I think there was a lot of trolling going on with guys just intentionally wrecking. And there was one guy that waited in the front stretch for the leader and missed and took out the guy in second. Luckily, it wasn't me at that point. We ended up finishing second, but it was definitely a lot of luck playing into that, just trying to survive the race.
Yikes. Yeah, I also got the impression that iRacing was watching these races carefully as well, so kind of surprised to hear about intentional wrecking. My next question about the NASCAR, and we'll talk about the Ignite series a little bit later, but my next question is, do you have any idea where it's going to lead to? I know you got a P2 now, and there's several other events, but what happens if you win, or what happens if you do well? Do you have any clue?
They haven't released anything official. I think with it being a full NASCAR sponsored series, that it's going to give you a lot of recognition if you do win it, and I think that you might get a shot in some type of IRL racing, but I'm not really sure what exactly it'll lead to, but it'll definitely get your name out there pretty widely if you win this series.
Yeah, and at least a trophy, I'm sure.
Yeah, at least a trophy. I do know that they will give out a trophy.
Yeah, how cool would that be to have a NASCAR sanctioned trophy? That would be awesome.
Do they check your ID?
Actually, that's what they're going to be doing later on in the season. Um, if you make it to the playoffs, if you're one of the top 50 drivers, I do believe that they want you to send in a picture of some type of ID and a picture of yourself, just to make sure that you are the age that you say you are. Just because all you're doing when you
So,
sign into these races is clicking a button that says that you legally agree that you are this age. So um, there definitely could be people out there that are not of age, but I don't
well,
think it'll last too long.
well, fingers crossed.
Yeah, if they get far enough, like you said, to the playoff portion, yeah, they're gonna figure out who these people are, and if they catch you and find out that they're not, they're gonna suspend your account probably. So, I read something like that in the forums.
Yeah, I would at least hope that they would be doing that, just because this is definitely a series for some of us younger guys that can't really afford to go race in real life. Speaking of something like that, a legend, racing legends on here, it costs $15,000-$20,000 just to start racing in legend cars right now, and a lot of people, they just cannot afford that and it just doesn't work. So this is a good shot for a lot of us younger people to try to get your name out there and see what you can do. And it's pretty amazing that you're able to do it all off of a computer.
Yeah, so that's the new NASCAR Ignite series. What else do you often run, or?
Um, I also run a lot of usually C class through A class fixed racing. I run open every once in a while. Run NIS here and there at tracks I like. But recently I've been doing a lot of league racing with the Dynasty Racing League. I recommend anybody listening to go check that league out. It's a great league, great people, broadcasted every single race, very fun. It's a good place to be, and a lot of good guys and a lot of fast, really good drivers in there too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And tell us about your hardware setup. I mean, what kind of wheels and pedals do you have? How many monitors? Third-party software?
Okay, yeah. So my setup, I run a G920 wheel with the Logitech shifter, but I do run the Fanatec CSL load cell pedals, um, all put together on a Rick Motec custom built RS1 chassis with a NRG racing seat. To top it all off, I don't actually use monitors. I run the Oculus Rift for my VR setup. Um, Definitely cannot recommend that enough. Go if you're choosing between triple monitors or Oculus Rift. I highly recommend going to Oculus. I do
Nice.
not really run any third-party softwares. I was running some racing apps for a little bit just because of the speed thing, and then it didn't suit me. I'd rather just run it straight up. It just less to deal with, in my opinion.
Yep, yep. Okay. And what's your most memorable iRacing moment?
Most memorable. It's got to be my first win at Darlington and the C-Fix truck. So I guess that wouldn't be my first win. That would be my second win. But that was probably my favorite moment. Going there to Darlington, which is one of my favorite tracks, and I believe I started second or third in that race and dominating the entire race. It was really cool for me to go do that, especially at a track like Darlington, where you're racing the track as much as you're racing anybody else on it.
All right, very good. I can't imagine that, I'm 40, I'm gonna date myself. I'm 47 years old. But when I was 16, if I had something like iRacing to learn racecraft on and prepare for real life racing, man, I would be stoked because I used to race back then. I used to race off-road Honda Odysseys in the Mickey Thompson off-road series, and but I can't imagine having iRacing as a young adult like that, and the potential it opens up. So good luck to you in the NASCAR Ignite series, and it's been fun learning about that. And as we go through, we'll have you back, and hopefully you can get a win.
Yeah, definitely hoping for a win. I think we'll be able to definitely get one throughout the series. Um, Currently 42nd in points or somewhere in there, which means we are in playoff position at the moment. We're close, but getting a second place finish is it's pretty good. But you definitely need to go out there and get quite a few wins if you want to win the series.
All right, cool. All right, let's jump into the next thing. NIS, NASCAR iRacing Series off week. So Sonoma is next. We'll talk about that on the next podcast. So we'll move right into topics. Tony, you're first.
All right. Well, first up is racing the Grand Prix World Championship Series. Martin Kroenke and Gregor Hutu battle in the pits at Silverstone, trading positions a few times. Kroenke would end up winning the race. Winning with the rate. He had the best strategy. Peter Berryman comes up third place, and Mitchell DeJong ends up P4, 3 spots higher on the grid than he qualified. Are any of you guys watching this? I am not, but
It's early Saturday.
okay. But I mean, we've talked about it last week, talked about it this week, and it sounds like some pretty good racing going on.
I watched it a little bit. It's definitely good racing, but there's a lot of strategy involved. All the passes for the lead were all made in the pits with pit calls. Those cars seem,
typical F1.
Yeah, they do a great job simulating F1 for sure. Definitely do a good job there. But yeah, it's entertaining.
The points are tied. De Jong and Hutu are tied. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think they mentioned this is going to be Mitchell DeJong's kind of only chance to go for this championship. I guess he has some real life driving commitments that he probably won't be able to do it next year. So this is kind of him giving it his all this year. So makes it entertaining.
Definitely takes a lot to beat Hutu.
Oh yeah, and Kroenke, and everybody else.
Hutu's been a name for the last 10 years here.
Yeah. They don't call him the alien for no reason.
All right, we're going to skip Peak because they're off this week. They'll do Sonoma next week. Will, what's next?
Yeah, we have the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars were back this week, and Alex Bergeron makes it 3 World of Outlaw wins in a row. So actually false. That was late models. I did not update that. But yeah, no, he led dominating fashion at Eldora. It was a pretty much single groove racetrack most of the race, which kind of took away from the fun a little bit. But they were still fighting for that real estate up there. And a couple times, leader made a mistake, got in the fence, and Alex got underneath them, took it away, and kind of ran away with it. So good racing considering the conditions they were given.
Bergeron going out there week in and week out, always being one of the best cars out there on dirt, and I don't think there's anybody better on the virtual dirt.
And not only dirt, any kind of car, really. I mean, the kid is awesome.
Yeah, very fast
road
driver.
racing's good.
Yeah, road racing, ovals. I mean, he's a pro oval driver, so. All right, well, good job, Alex. Next topic. All of a sudden, with no fanfare, we have a brief announcement. $17,000 iRacing Rallycross World Championship has been announced. It starts tonight, about 45 minutes from now. They have a schedule. It looks like it runs every couple weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks, through October 25th. And there's no title sponsor. It's called iRacing Rallycross. I don't know where the $17,000 purse comes from, but apparently they have a purse.
They must have sold a lot of Subarus.
I would like to ask your guys' opinion. What do you guys think about the Scott Speed being allowed into the World Championship, being not working for the pro license at all, being banned from iRacing from the last 4 months, and being basically the face of the series after being banned from iRacing?
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? That was also announced today that Scott Speed would be participating, even though he did not qualify for this series. And apparently, you had to qualify. That was over I don't remember when it was. It was for over several weeks, maybe a month or 2 ago.
We were talking about this earlier, and I said they used to do that a lot in the Peak series when they were trying to get it going. Earnhardt would show up, and he was allowed in no matter what. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was allowed in. He didn't have his pro license stuff. He was just like a special guest in. But this is controversial probably because of the fact that he was kicked out of iRacing for a bit.
If it was anyone else, we wouldn't be talking about it. That's
I agree with that. I think if it was any other rallycross driver that didn't make a name for himself already by being, blatantly, wrecking people and aggressive towards other people on iRacing, I don't think anybody would mind. But the way he's acted and been very belligerent to other drivers, it's just been, it's kind of sad to see iRacing kind of back down from their status on him.
Yeah,
Well-
and you know what? What's his name? iRacing Myers on Twitter, also known as Steve Myers from the iRacing staff, has been all over Twitter today defending his decision to allow Scott Speed. And there were several Twitters about clarifying he wasn't banned, he was only suspended, and it was a temporary suspension. And they
Now-
treat him just like any other driver.
Here's an observation I was thinking about too. The reason they might be the way he's so adamant about it. Do you think they might be trying to use Scott Speed to get, maybe there's some sponsor or something? Look, we got him in a thing. We can get money from this sponsor because he's in it.
No, I mean, he also said on Twitter, Myers did, the reason that another reason that he added him, or the reason they added him, was they want somebody to compete with Mitchell DeJong, which we just talked about. Who runs the F1. Mitchell DeJong is a real rallycross driver. He actually qualified. He ran the qualifying series to get into this event, and so he's afraid. He basically said on Twitter, Mitchell would continue to win all the races and nobody would be able to compete with him. And he did it for the fans. Let's add Scott Speed for the fans so they'd have a good show.
I highly doubt that was 100% for the fans. I feel like this puts iRacing in a win-win situation. They're going to have a bunch of people check out the broadcast. One, to see if Scott Speed does Scott Speed things. If he does, that's going to be a lot of publicity. Good or bad, it's still publicity. Or on the flip side, him and DeJong or whoever put on a really good show, and this is iRacing's way to say, see, he's not that bad of a guy. So I think they're in a win-win situation. They might have upset some of the drivers, but this was always in the rules that they could do this. I don't think it's good as a competitor, but as a fan, I think it's great. But not for good racing, just for the drama alone.
Yeah, let me read a couple quotes off Twitter from Steve Myers. Here's one. Scott has done far more good for iRacing than bad. Rallycross on iRacing would not exist without his help, and he has never asked for a penny from us. I am sleeping just fine with this decision. And
I
then
don't
he says,
I don't believe that one tweet one bit. He's done more bad than good.
He says, Connor Harrington called him out. He said, wrong, Connor. We treat everyone the same. Scott was suspended just like anybody else would be. He did his time, and now he is free to use the service just like anyone else would. And then he says, I would not put him in a World Championship series if he was not World Championship caliber. He is World Championship caliber and maybe the only one that will give Mitchell DeJong a run for his money. So in the end, it was for the fans.
And I
Now,
think this is going to raise a great question. These IRL drivers, how good are these great sim racers? Are they going to be able to keep up with these IRL drivers, or maybe even be better than some of the IRL drivers? It's going to be interesting to see who's able to do what in this championship series. I think it might actually be something to watch.
Well, Logan Clampett is really fast. Alex Bergeron's really fast. They're going to be able to keep up with Mitchell and Scott.
Yeah,
I
definitely crazy to see these guys like Bergeron and all these other drivers that are so good on ovals, and then come over to rallycross, which is, if you're a dirt driver, it's you can't even compare the two styles. They're completely different. Just because they're both on dirt, it just doesn't. They're not the same at all. So it's amazing to see that these drivers are so good in so many different disciplines. It's definitely crazy.
Here's the thing on the Scott Speed decision. My take is, you know what? Whatever iRacing does, they need to be consistent on it going forward. When we have a championship series, if they add a real life championship driver of that same series without qualifying in, then they've set precedent. So they need to do that going forward. So if they have the peak series and Dale Jr. wants to sit in a race, well, they're going to let him because he's been a cup driver all his life. Or somebody like that, a William Byron or somebody like that.
I think
They
it would
could.
be great to see some of these drivers come in there. I think it gives these, I think it gives the series a great bit of publicity. And you know, in any other case, but the Scott Speed incident, I've always agreed that yeah, this is great publicity for the service itself and for the streams. But I just don't think the Scott Speed thing is, it just doesn't seem right that the way he's acted.
I think they kind of had the right idea last year when they had those 4 invitational races. They had guys like Ty Majeski, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson. I think racing those guys the same night as the pros, but make it invitational, make it a special event. Promote that. Don't let somebody from the outside who put no effort to get there ruin somebody else's championship. They definitely have the tools to do so, so I don't know why they don't take advantage of them.
It's amazing how this discussion on online racing is the same as the NASCAR with the Xfinity and the trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny that you say that because I mean it is, you know, in those series it's, you know, a lot of fans are trying to figure out what they're wanting, what the fans want, whether they're gonna let guys like Kyle Busch come down and dominate every other week or keep them out.
You know, if Scott hadn't wrecked that guy a few months ago and got himself suspended, I don't think we'd be talking about this. I think we'd be saying this is a good thing.
You're pretty much right on that one, Mike. It's just a controversy, and that's how it's always going to be.
Well, you know, and I understand that Steve Myers had to make a decision, and it was probably a tough one because nobody would have blamed Steve Myers if they said, you know what, we're going to pass Scott Speed because of what happened a few months ago. You know, that kind of tainted your name a little bit, and we don't want that associated with our new event here. And nobody would have faulted Steve Myers if they would have passed on Scott Speed being in this event.
But do you think they asked Scott Speed to be there, or do you think Scott Speed asked to be there? I don't know what Scott gains from being there. It's been nothing but negative publicity for him. I almost feel like iRacing wants him there more than probably he wants to be there. I know he has a lot of effort getting the cars the way they are, and he did a lot of development work, but that part kind of makes me curious.
I got something to
Very
say.
good question.
Quick. What about maybe him putting up the money for the championship?
Yeah, we don't know where the money came from.
Yeah.
That's
Buying-
a good
buying
question.
his way
I
in
feel
wouldn't
like
look
this,
good either,
there's going to
though.
be a lot of sponsors that are, you know, there might not be a huge title sponsors like the Peak Series, but if you look at, you know, especially on the dirt side of things, if you looked at the other night, they had I want to say it was a $5,400 prize night for modified races, being the highest paying race that iRacing's ever had for a single event. And there was no real there was one title sponsor on it but you know, you look at the other dirt racing, like the World Outlaw Series, there's no title like sponsor as in a like a Peak or anything like that on there either. So
How about the video they put out? I mean, it got me pumped. I told the team, man, I was pumped up after watching that video. It looks like so much fun, and
It looks like they stole your paint job too there, Mike.
yeah, I saw that. I was wondering if that was actually my car.
That was the same template I used when I made it. I just don't know how they knew to get those two colors put together.
But yeah, the video again, top quality. iRacing's really knocking them out of the park. Very well done. It's like a TV commercial, you know.
yeah, that's definitely what they're going for. The replay with the replay cameras and everything at this point, I mean, you can't tell the difference in the replays anymore.
I know it looks like real stuff. Well, I'll be interested to kind of see where who does well, and is Scott going to win, or is he going to dominate, or is it going to be Mitchell?
I was
We'll see.
just thinking there. Obviously, iRacing did exactly what it wanted. It made us talk for about 10 minutes about this topic.
Well, any publicity is good publicity, yeah. Well, we know that Scott Speed was on site at iRacing headquarters because it had him in the video in the offices when he announced it, and we knew he was up there a couple weeks ago because there were some pictures of him there.
Well, we also got to remember that he we say that he didn't do a lot for it, but I do believe that there would not be a Rallycross series if it wasn't for Scott Speed, him going in there and giving a lot of knowledge about how the physics work on that type of racing. From what they're saying, they've completely nailed it. I do not know a whole lot about rally racing, but I mean, it seems pretty legit. They're definitely hard to drive.
Okay, let's jump to the next topic, Greg.
All right, we'll go through this one quickly. It's just for the hot fixes that were released the other day. Just talking about a couple bugs that they were quickly going through. They fixed the bug that caused heat races to run as regular races. Fixed the bug with the LMP1 setup. We're not transferring with drivers. The dirt midget. The left side arm guard panel may now be removed or add an option to the iRacing garage, or is added to the option to the iRacing garage. And the IMSA Raceway Oval open dogleg fixed missing pit exit checkpoint, causing there to be no pit exit rule. There's also another thing there that we found that some season 3 setups or on the some tracks with the setups were not completed yet in that build. So that's just part of the hot fixes.
Yeah, if you don't have a set for a series that is available, you have to go on the forums and find those sets. They're publishing them as they're coming out. So like the K&N cars, apparently they forgot to publish the setup, so they put them on the forums.
I almost wish they'd update those things more often, try to keep up with the physics and all the updates they give.
All right, Tony, what's next?
Well, this is a great topic, and we've been warned on our sheet there not to let us Canadians spend too much time on this. But there's a Facebook post showing iRacing sponsoring a Pinty's car, which is the Canadian NASCAR series. Really cool looking car from probably one of the best racing team racing names ever. Um, they call themselves Canada's Best Racing Team Incorporated. It's kind of a throwback to the Days of Thunder and the Cole Trickle car with the paint scheme and iRacing's names all over it. That quickly turned into some discussion on the forums. People asking like, "Hey, could we be looking at a new series? New car. How cool would that be?" And they um, they message back saying they're actually working on it. Stay tuned. Now that was posted by Canada's Best Racing Team. Man, that could be really neat. Like this is a pretty crazy series. I mean, it's all it's road tracks and short tracks, and some of those tracks are really short. Like there's a racetrack not too far away from where I live, and it's an 8th-mile track these guys come to. I think they're only here once a year. But man, oh man, it is some really good racing.
Now, when you guys were talking about this, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. It's Pinty, Pinty.
Yeah, that's right.
It's sponsored by a brand of chicken wings.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they are good, man. They are good.
So that's a sponsor. Okay, I get it. All right, I've never heard of the Pinty series until this came up and you guys were talking about it. I'm like, okay.
Is this the Cash Car series? Is that
Yeah,
what it is?
it used to be called Cascar, It's now
Aha.
Pinty's, Mike. It used to be the Canadian Tire series before Pinty's took over too.
Okay, I was wondering that too. I've never heard of it, and I guess that's why.
And these are like cup cars from like 5 years ago or something, right?
No, they're like a whole different body on. It's a
Okay,
different
so they got
type
their
of thing.
own rule.
Right. Yeah, they seem much wider than the
I think
Cup
they
cars.
play in a small rule base where they can't do much to them. They're basically built in one way, and then they can
IROC.
do their basic stuff to them.
One of
That's
the
a good question
descriptions.
whether they should do that in the Monster Energy series, where they build them to a specific quality where everybody's running, a lot of it being the same. What do you guys think? Whether that be a good or a bad thing for the series?
Ugh, that's a tough call.
This is the same thing about. I'm not gonna get. Not a road guy completely, but F1. These are supposed to be the best cars in the best division. It's the same as the F1. Why do we have to dull down? Make them work for what they're doing.
Right. If it's a premier series, you don't want to IROC.
I say if they want to cut costs and the racing in the truck series is perfect. Like they race really well in the truck series with the talent they got there, and they keep costs low. It helps people race more to get into the cup. But the cup is all about spending money, and they want to save money. But it's the same with F1. F1 wants to dull the cars down and do certain things like that. You're supposed to be engineers, and that's what everybody paid years ago when F1 came around. Everybody wanted to see what an engineer could come up with if they thought about it and what they could put into it when you had money. But now everybody wants them in a pack and all together, and then when they're in a pack all together, they'll want them all apart.
Well, I think the hard thing is if you put them in a really tight rule box, they still have engineers, they still have money to spend, so they're going to spend money on other things like pick guns, and they're going to spend money no matter what. So the more rules you give them, you almost kind of make them spend more money to work around it. If it was more open, you could at that point as a team decide, hey, do we focus on bodies? Do we focus on engines? What's our focus as a team? And it'll all level out, because once somebody develops something, they're all going to catch on quick. But the tighter and tighter you make that box, and the less advantage you can actually see as a spectator, as a fan, takes away that ingenuity, which I think takes away from the sport as a whole.
So if we get this added, iRacing, what is it, a B or a C class?
I would say it could be even a D. Like it could be just above, like, because they don't really have
late model.
It's like in the late model category, because the tracks are small. The cars probably won't have much to do setup wise on them, so you could probably have a fixed or an open series that you do on it. And they're fun cars, like, because they race at the the Canadian Motorsports Park where the trucks go in September. They race there at the same weekend that they're there.
So short oval and road.
Well, the Canadian Sport is the road course, right? So that's like one of the fastest. It's got one of the longest straightaways for a road course.
But they do short oval too, right?
Yeah, and the racing is really exciting to watch. If iRacing did do it, the tracks are really simple to scan. There's not much a lot of our racetracks are in open farm fields, right? So that's what you got. The problem with Canada is, we have the weather in the wintertime that screws up a lot of the tracks.
Yeah.
I would say they could do something like they do with the Indy cars. They could have a fixed oval, like maybe a C or D class. And then they could have it be like a road license for the main series that does run on both road and oval. We kind of see that right now with the IndyCar series we have.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask, whether they would make it a which series would they make it into, because it's such a half and half between oval and road racing that it would be hard to just put it into oval or road racing.
Yeah, personally, I think it should be fixed and an A class. Yeah, definitely A and fixed is my opinion.
Yeah, but you don't want it. It's got to be a series you climb up. Like when people first it's different for all of us that we've been on this sim for 6 months to a year and stuff. I don't know if you remember, Mike, when the progression is, like when I first started in 2009, you had to do that progression and you weren't allowed to advance like you are nowadays. It's so much easier to advance nowadays. Back then, you actually had to race a full series to get out of it.
Correct.
And
There was no fast tracking.
yeah, and the fast tracking didn't exist until like I think 2012. So you had to race a full season before you could even get a license. And if you didn't even have your license qualified by the end of that season, you'd have to do it all over again. So that's where you actually had to go up. And then this whole generation of we got to get going through these licenses faster. That's why iRacing catered and changed. That's why some of these things are so hard to drive now, because they let people that not learn to drive a car like us right now. We could hop in. Someone that just got on the series could basically hop into a dirt late model, race for a week, and then move up, and 1 week at a time they could go to a next series. And that's what's the problem is, you don't learn your craft on one car. And then you're sitting in the forums asking for setups and learning that stuff. Man, I spent hours just tweaking one thing or here, trying to get better in those series. I spent probably a season and a half just in the truck series.
Yep.
Well, that's also another great question, whether there's certain drivers, like myself. I mean, I've been a part of the service for going on a year now, and it's fairly easy for me to go ahead and get my A class license. But at this point, I can drive confidently any vehicle on the service, and with fairly decent, to low amount of practice at any track, I can run top 5 with, top split races.
Could I ask you a question, Spencer? If it was back the way it used to be, this is just because obviously you're 16. Back when I got on, I was early 20s. So at 16 right now, if you had to wait a full season to go from rookie to D to C would your attention get lost in this sim?
I think that's a good question, and I'm not exactly sure how it would have worked out, because I think if I had to stay in the rookie series or D series for those long amounts of time, it would have drawn me away from the sim, because a lot of times in those rookie or D class races, they're really not fun. The only reason you're running them, it feels like, is just to go ahead and get that C class license or get that next license class, so that you don't have to deal with the people that are just there that have no idea what they're doing. But I don't think I would have stayed on the service, to be perfectly honest with you, if I had to stay, a full season just to get out of rookie and then a full season to get out of D class.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. Will, you got rain updates?
Yeah, so we got some information on the forums this week. Tony Gardner posted. They basically mentioned that they're working on adding different tire compounds. That is going to be something they're going to have to do before we have rain. So that is kind of what they're working on that. He did mention they don't expect rain to be a feature that's released in 2018. So we're definitely looking at 2019 sometime, hopefully early on, but 2019 at least to get rain. Somebody also mentioned hydroplaning confirmed. And Tony basically said yes. Right now we're working on the polish effect for rain. It should change the normal race line. He basically said you could read a whole book about it. But yeah, so rain, hydroplaning, that's all confirmed. They are working on it, but the first thing we're gonna have to get through is actually having different tire compounds. So it's a work in progress. Sometime hopefully early next year, but definitely not this year.
And the
Early
comment from
2020.
Tony, yeah, the comment from Tony does give you a clue about why the new version of tire model might have been late, because the way he says it, he says, yes, but right now he is working on the polish effect for rain. Now he is David Kamer, the guy who does the tire model. It sounds like maybe he got sidetracked with this polish effect thing, and he's working on that at the moment.
Well,
This is absolutely huge for 24-hour races and things like that. With the day-night cycle coming in, and then maybe a rain coming down at certain parts of the race, and then it drying and things like that. that's absolutely
It'll be
huge for these
huge.
endurance races. It's going to change absolutely everything for the entire race. I think it's going to be amazing, to be perfectly honest with you.
The roadside's good. The roadside has some like really good potential stuff coming for them just to do stuff because it obviously on ovals it won't affect us. The tire model will, but some of those subtle changes there will increase people's like you were talking there, Spencer. You've been on Project Cars. They they do a pretty good job depicting rain as much as they can in a simulator or their thing. It entices you to do more, so it might draw people in on the roadside with this stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The endurance series, with the iRacing having arguably the best tire model out there, by a long shot. Then you're going to be able to bring in the day-night cycle, and with rain, which plays a factor in a lot of these longer endurance races in Project Cars or other sims. It's definitely going to change everything on iRacing, and I think it's going to be a lot more enjoyable for a lot of the drivers. It's going to, especially in these long races where you're running the same line the entire time, it's going to mix things up a lot.
Could even make the couple of road courses that Cup cars go to for a while interesting.
Drying track, yeah, that really sounds fun.
I'm not sure if they've said anything about that yet, but I mean, I'd assume if they're going to implement, knowing iRacing, if they're going to implement something like this, they're going to go ahead and do it 100% at the start.
Oh yeah.
It might be something that they add on later, just if somebody asks for it.
All right,
Yeah.
but he did say not in 2018 on the rain stuff. So we know we have day-night coming this year, but rain would be maybe next year.
Yeah, hopefully before the next year's 24-hour Le Mans, maybe.
All right, what's next, Greg?
Go through this one quickly as well because it's iRacing posted. They got some merchandise here, a T-shirt promoting the Peak series. It looks like, and they're not bad-looking shirts. But I guess the biggest problem that some people were saying is the T-shirt got the Camaro before we did. So it was kind of there's some
That's
people
funny
poking
looking
fun
at the
it.
T-shirt. I didn't notice that the first time that it does have the new Camaro on there.
A teammate of ours noticed that it was the 2018 Camaro with the 2016 Camry. So
The
it's kind of
shirts look
funny.
pretty good.
Shirts are nice, but that is very funny.
So the website is r-rracewear.com. All right, I got the next one. Dale Jr. is back on Twitter praising iRacing again this week. Jeff Gluck pointed out comments made by David Reagan discussing the age of just keep all the four wheels on the track is over, and he continued to point out the overall improvement of NASCAR drivers on road courses. Dale Jr. posted he felt iRacing is the best tool to learn the road course disciplines and techniques. He did mention it using to learn shift, braking, and throttle points, but he also pointed out while teams have multi-million-dollar simulators, they don't emulate the human competition that iRacing can. Very cool stuff.
Well, if you think about it, this is what I was saying when we were having the conversation. Even if for a person like me who I work nights, so like I said, I'm not home till late in the night. When I do my practices on a session, I go into a practice session by myself. Usually there's nobody in it to gauge anything off of. Even if there was an option with, having somebody, you learn more when you have somebody in there with you. You can learn what you're doing wrong, or you can compare yourself. Sometimes you can learn the track by muscle memory driving around all you want, but if that guy's in your line, you got to figure somewhere else to go.
Yeah, I'd say like even on my front, I raced go-karts and basically stuff on dirt ovals for years. I hadn't done it for about 4 years when I started iRacing, and I would say within a month or two of iRacing and racing around other cars, I felt I could confidently get back in a car and do just as good, if not better, than when I got out of a car. So not solely my driving ability, but my ability to run in a pack, run around people, see the moves that were being made. He's absolutely right. Like, the human element iRacing gives is phenomenal because, I mean, you're racing another person at the other end of that connection. It's impressive.
Well, and you're practicing race strategy. When do you pit? You know, are you going to short pit? Is a green cycle stops? Do you go when the leader comes? Do you wait a lap? I mean, there's so many little things that racecraft and repetition of going through these races teach you. And that's what he's really talking about. Kudos to Dale Jr. Also, Kaz Gralla, an Xfinity driver, he also jumped in on Twitter about on this conversation and said he learned the basics of dirt racing last year for the Eldora Speedway purely on iRacing. So he was going to iRacing, he was going to the Eldora Speedway in the Truck Series. He learned the track on iRacing, and that's the only time he had seen it before he arrived there for his first race.
And if I do remember correctly, he did very well.
Yeah. All right, and the fun part, Alan Cavanna, Fox Sports reporter, he tweeted a photo of NASCAR from 1994, a Papyrus NASCAR game, which sparked some nostalgia conversations. The best was Dale Jr. again. He said, to race online, you had to call Massachusetts. I'd race all night. I shared a double-wide trailer with my brother, Kerry. Never will forget the look on his face when we got that first $450 phone bill.
Oh boy. Hey Mike, do you remember that 1994 NASCAR? We used to race that all the time.
Yeah, that's what you taught me how to race on, actually.
Back in the day
long
of
time
modems,
ago.
you had to call a phone number to get internet.
Man, I remember getting my friends to always call a second time to make sure that they can get through because of that damn thing. That internet was terrible because of that too.
It was that I remember that. That's what made me fall in love with NASCAR.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was I think that was the first racing game that allowed you to flip and had damage model or something like that.
So back in the day, the problem was you could run up a $450 phone bill because you had to call to get connected for the game. These days, the teenagers, they just run out of internet data on their cellular, right?
Yeah, well, only on a cell phone. I mean, I've never ran out of internet on running iRacing.
It's a good thing for unlimited internet.
Yep. All right. Well, pretty cool. Dale Jr. Very involved on Twitter there. Tony, what's next?
This is a really quick one. Just a question, why does iRacing limit the number of car types? Alexander Horn hopped in the forums this week clarifying why iRacing has a 6-car limit. And just to clarify, that's 6 types of cars, not 6 total, obviously. As one might guess, it is a matter of systems not being able to reliably handle all the data given off the car. And you can find more info about that on the frequently asked questions page, or find the link in our show notes.
It's really a fascinating topic and thread because if they had opened it up and, okay, we can allow 20 different kinds of cars, it's possible iRacing could do that, but your computer wouldn't handle it. And that's really what the conversation is. They're like, there's no way. Computers today would not be able to handle it at all.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But like these endurance series, they fit. Are they going to be able to, once they scan more cars in, are they going to be able to handle more cars maybe to keep, the growing number of cars for the endurance series?
Well, part of the discussion I was reading in the thread was as we make the sim more less graphic intensive, they make it more efficient, then they'll increase that number from to 7 to 8 and so on.
Yeah.
Would that have to?
Ferrari just got booted because of the Porsche, right? Or the GTE.
It's only 6 total.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's gonna probably come in the iRacing interface, not. It won't be on this web browser then.
Are they gonna? I mean, they would have to keep. Are there? I'm gonna assume they add the LMP1 cars, right? For the endurance series, as one of the cars.
Yeah, and then the tracks that we're talking about are huge, like Le Mans, the biggest track out there. Another quick tidbit here. He says each additional car type in a session uses about 150 megabytes of video memory and 275 megabytes of system memory. So 6 car types consumes about 1 gigabyte of your video memory.
Damn.
That's 2 gigabytes right there.
So that's why they recommend a 2 gig card.
A minimum, right?
Yeah, especially a lot of us VR guys. Once we do have to, we have to pay attention to things like that, unless you're running a 1080 Ti or something like that. You kind of have to pay attention to your graphic settings, because I'm only running, I believe, a 980 or a RX 480, I believe, with the 8 gigabyte overclock edition, and I have it everything set pretty high, but there's certain things that you do have to pay attention to, mainly shadows and things like that, that'll really kill frame rate.
Yep. All right, next, Will. Road to new damage.
Yeah, so we got a lot of information as far as where they're headed for the new damage model. Senior software engineer Richard Joblin, I hope I pronounced that right. He basically wrote an article about where they stand with the new damage model. They went into a lot of detail as far as what we have now, how it works, what issues we see now, and what they're working on for the future. And a lot of it actually is surprising. It has to do with the cones we like to run over. So he has a ton of information, almost more than we could come up here. I think it was really cool they shared all that, but they didn't give any kind of release date or plan. But yeah, it was a really good read. You could definitely find it. The link in our show notes or on iRacing.com/road-new-damage.
It's
Definitely believe that's
it's a good
gonna
read.
take a while.
It gives you a flavor of how much really goes into it. It's more complicated than you would think. And I mean, one of the neat pictures that he did post was a photo with all the different car parts that can be broken off. And so they show like a Mazda car here, a Skip Barber car, and they show like the wheel can come off, the nose cone, the actual nose, the rear wing, and so forth. And pretty cool. And then they also talk about how they're changing the system right now. They use spears and like round spears to dictate, when you make a collision, if it gets damaged. Now it's going to be switched to polygons. And so the polygons will make it a little bit easier to not have sticky walls, which is a common problem in iRacing. Hopefully sticky walls will go away with this new system. They're
Definitely
helping.
need that to be gone. Ovals.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also mentioned you should see less 4x and 2x's for minor collisions. Right now, the spears, even if they don't fully touch, if there are areas like overlap, and that's what generates that, from what I could tell in the forum post. So by these new polygons, they're going to be able to get more accurate representations of how much contact we do make. So I think that would be good for those kind of ghost 4x's we're seeing.
So
Yeah,
I can't
that's
spear
definitely
Mike
good.
anymore?
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's gonna play a big role in some of these short tracks that you take a lot of 4x's from very slight contact when you're on a one-lane track, so like Martinsville. Sometimes you got to use that bumper of the guy in front of you, and
I would love to be
a
able
lot
to
of
do
times
that.
you don't hit them very hard, but you do get that 4x.
Yep. All right, let's keep moving. Next topic is William Byron posted up, well, actually with Hendrick Motorsports, twittered a short video of William Byron asking, why do you do that? And why does William Byron still fire up iRacing from time to time? And he tells us. So it's a interesting little video that just kind of, promote iRacing and I guess William Byron.
He's been a interesting one to watch in the NASCAR series this year. Just, we're coming back on the second half of the season. I'm really interested to see how he does when he redoes a track now, because he's been that Chevy team's getting better.
Well, I mean, he did really good in trucks and Xfinity, and you got to give him that. He hasn't, really performed greatly in Cup yet, but like you said, he's coming around to the second time to these tracks. But at the end of the day, he does have a sponsor. He brought the sponsor. I mean, that's a big reason he probably has it.
Well, I mean, he also won the Xfinity Series and he won
That's
the Truck
true.
Series too, both on his first year driving it, and going to a lot of these tracks on his first time, and he gives a lot of credit to iRacing, just like what Dale Jr. was saying, for these drivers that haven't been to a track before, seeing it first time, you get a lot of learn so much off of iRacing braking points and things like that you just can't replace. It's really amazing what iRacing does for these drivers.
All right, let's keep cruising. Next, hardware, software, a new motion cockpit. Well, I don't know if it's new, but it's new to me. DOF Reality Motion Simulator. They have a website, dofreality.com. And pretty cool design. It's got, 3 different ways of pitch and roll and that kind of thing. What do you guys think of this? I mean, the good one, the top of the line one, $2,500, which is not bad for a motion setup.
Yeah, that's actually very reasonable compared to really any other. If it stays at that price at $2,500, it seems like a very good deal if it works as well as it looks.
If you guys look at the website though, like that 2,500, see that. I guess they have two of them here. The one that's $17.99 and the one that's $24.99. They both are the 3-degree one. Like, if you're an oval racer, you want the 3-degree one because it's the swaying of the back. The other ones were side to side, like in forward and back.
Right.
It's like a different. The 3-degree one that they have looks like it's a lot better for more accuracy. If you want, a good. If you're gonna spend the money, you're gonna want that motion of it, breaking loose and stuff like that.
Looking closer at the pricing, the $2,500 says commercial operation only. The $1,800 version looks like the same thing, but it says for individual use. So I guess the price is actually $1,800.
There has to be some kind of difference between them as far as durability goes for it to be commercial use.
Yeah, what's the difference? Yeah, I'd want to know that.
I'm
So,
say
yeah,
if you're gonna spend
probably,
it, get the good one.
I was gonna say you're probably right. The commercial one is like, okay, if you're an arcade or something trying to insert, 4 or 5 of them, you want them to be in pretty good quality, right? If you're at home, you're the
Makes
one
you
that's
think
putting
whether
all the
they're
stuff on it.
using some kind of heavier metal for them.
I would think I'm guessing it'd be like direct drive kind of things, like the motors would be probably beefed up more for
Look
moving
at the
it.
video. I mean, wow.
Well, the one thing that I picked out of this, like the rig itself isn't all that pretty. It's pretty bare bones. It is what it is. But the movement, like you were just mentioning there, the movement seems to be just awesome. But another thing, like these things, um, they said they can handle not only any heavy direct drive wheel plus a pilot of up to 330 pounds. So I mean, these things are at least seem to be built pretty damn strong.
Frick, that's 2 people on me.
Look, an Albedo Revolution stationary cockpit is like $1,100, $1,200. This is $1,800 and gives you the same thing.
Well, we are only talking about the base, and
You have to have a
in
seat.
reality, I have a NRG racing seat, but that's $300 to $400 more. You start talking mounts and things like that. It easily gets up there in price, and from what I'm seeing on this website, it just doesn't really show you very much about it. There's no I don't know. It just seems like it doesn't seem very proven yet.
Look at the video. That's telling. That's what I was looking
Yeah,
at.
see, I did watch the video. It looked very good. The the way it worked and everything. But there's just so much about this website that it's just not showing us a
Right.
lot about the product itself, and especially setup and something like this. You set something up like this, you're gonna want to have some idea of what's going on with stuff like this, and you would think they would get some, big drivers or big reviewers to do something on it, but I guess
I'll
not yet.
contact them.
Yeah, give me a test one. Now the monitors are not attached, so your monitors would be stationary. But if you were VR, this would be perfect. Actually,
That's what I was just thinking. This is probably built for a VR type thing more than anything, because if you're sitting in front of your monitor and it's not moving, it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, from all the videos that I'm seeing on it itself, they're all running VR, so it doesn't it's not interfering with anything.
And Will, I was just looking at the thing. If you look at the pictures from the commercial one to the individual one, they have different motors and the design underneath the seat's different.
I see. Yeah, you probably want the better one.
Yeah, the only thing, like, if I ever invested in motion, this thing looks amazing. But, like, can you honestly feel like, say, if you put stiffer springs in the front of your car, does it move less forward? Like, is it that entailed is just what I'm curious of. Because if it is, that would be phenomenal.
I think the best thing about something like this, especially coming from an oval side of the car, is feeling that rear end, and then you can really drive with the seat of your pants. That's they say that a lot in racing, and that's the one thing that's kind of lacking on iRacing or something like that, is you just don't have that seat of the pants feeling of the car breaking loose in the back. You start to learn it, you feel it through the wheel, but it's nothing like actually driving the car and it breaking loose, and you feel it.
It doesn't even, I'm trying to look here, it doesn't even say, like, what program is it using to do all this?
Yeah, exactly. No. Are they running an independent program, or it definitely still feels, at least looking at it, it still looks like a startup campaign to me, more than really. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen these out in the wild, so I don't know if this is brand new or what.
I would love to see what happened. I would like them to demonstrate when a guy spins out. I want to see it spin around. It'd be funny if it would.
I don't think it spins around all the way.
I'm just kidding. I'm just making a joke.
Yeah, it does twist, though.
Yeah, that video is pretty good, though. But you're basically paying for the motors and a frame. There's just nothing. There's nothing spectacular to it.
Good price on it and everything, but definitely would like to see some well-known reviewers, Inside Sim Racing and people like that get a hold of it, and then really, guys that are known around the community, get a hold of this thing before you can really make too much of a opinion on it.
All right, let's keep moving. We heard from Joel Hamilton this week. He's been on the podcast before. He's with Virtual to Reality. He had the thing where he held a online racing competition, and Alex Bergeron actually won that, and they ended up putting him in a sprint car in a real race situation. Well, he's done it again. He's got 3 new drivers who have earned the right to go real race car driving. Those drivers are Anthony Lopresto, Tim Smith, and Chase Cabre have won the contest, and so they'll be racing a nice looking sprint car with the V2R logo and colors on it.
Yeah, it looks like it's what they call a focus midget. So it's like the midget we know on iRacing, other than it uses I believe like a stock Ford Focus motor. So it doesn't have quite the power or the torque, but I remember seeing these things run at a practice at local dirt track back in California, and I think it'd be a great car for what they're doing. It's not a radical, crazy car, but it's not an entry-level division either. I think it's the perfect fit for what he's trying to do.
Yeah, it's a good starting car, not, throw them in a proper sprint, right, and kill themselves going into turn 1.
Yeah, no, it's definitely no midget. The first time I saw him run, it was honestly kind of a little bit disappointing. But I was in the mindset of a midget, so kind of taking a step back. It's a great starter car, a perfect transition for what they're trying to do.
Pretty cool that Joel is able to figure out once again how to get this thing funded somehow, some way. Okay, moving on. Final topic. We're going to talk about. We heard from an iRacing staff member about our podcast. I do post that each time we put up a new episode in the forums, and he replied on that post. Alexander Horn from the iRacing staff. Hey, this is great. Thanks for posting. So I bet you we have at least one iRacing staff member as a listener to the podcast. So I've always suspected as much, but now we have a confirmation.
We need to get one of those guys on here as a guest one of these days.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Even just, something for like upcoming builds and stuff, maybe get them to talk on here.
There you go. Let's jump into final thoughts. Gregory Hectus, what do you got?
Just looking forward to this week at Sonoma. We've been practicing a bit, and just can't wait to do it. We'll see how it goes.
All right, and you got your wheel back. Tell us a quick update about what happened with that.
No, it's not back yet. It's still not good. I'm gonna.
Oh, you
deal with that.
borrowed a wheel.
Yeah, I still got. I got Tony's wheel still.
Okay, but you sent your wheel off to be repaired, and they're gonna send it back.
Yeah, I have yet to keep using their name. I'm gonna not put their name in it right now.
Well, I didn't either. All right, Michael Morley, final thoughts.
I'm just excited for the future. Excited for what's coming, what they're gonna bring, and how fast they're gonna bring it. And yeah.
Soon.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
All right, very good. Tony Groves, final thoughts.
Yeah, well, first off, I'm going to throw out another shout out to one of our listeners, Clay Wagner. He sent me another article this week, and it just so happens Will was already all over it. And that's awesome. He sent me a bunch of stuff that we've talked about. Love it, keep it coming, and thank you very much. As for everything else, well, I ain't gonna talk about this week. Last week I didn't do anything, so uh, I guess on to next week.
Okay, very good. Yeah, send us your story ideas, guys. We love having those because between all of us, we find almost all the stories out there, but there's always something that we miss. So please contact us with any story ideas you have. William Gibson, final thoughts.
All right, hotkeys messing up here.
Before you go here, Mike, I just want to say thanks. We got to thank Will for working on these pages too. He does a great job putting all this together, and
yeah.
we're really thankful for him to take his time and go through this and make sense of it so that we can have something to talk about. So we appreciate it, Will.
Yeah, you should have seen it before, Will. It was bad. And the new show notes that we're publishing, guys, with all the links that we're talking about. So you can find the show note link, in social media and stuff. All right, and then special guest, Spencer Tart. Thank you for joining us today. What are your final thoughts?
I want to go ahead and thank you guys a lot for having me on. I had a good time talking about everything. Definitely looking forward to this NASCAR Ignite series. Definitely brings a really great opportunity to people like myself, and hopefully we do really well in this series. starting off with a P2 isn't too bad, and hopefully we'll go out there next week and get a win.
Yeah, and I think you should be testing and working on. Is it a fixed setup or is it open?
It is a fixed setup, which
Okay.
is a good and a bad thing, if depending on who you ask.
Right. Well, just be ready, and we'll be pulling for you. Come back to the show anytime. You're welcome.
All right,
Hey,
I
good luck.
appreciate it.
Yeah, good
Good luck,
to
man.
you. All right, my final thoughts. Boy, off week then to Sonoma, which is just get my points and run. Take my hit on my I rating and my SR because I will take a hit at Sonoma. I am an oval guy. But Sonoma counts towards the championship, so I need to get some token points. Maybe I can get 65 or 70, and I'll be happy. And move on to the next week, Chicago. Yes, I'm excited to get back to an oval. It feels like it's been forever since we've been oval racing, so bring it on. That's what I say. And with that, we'll see you later.
User